Joining us for Pat's Chat, Mr. Dante De Caria. Thanks for taking the time, Dante. You made it to Medicine Hat safe and sound.
Yes, we did. It was kind of, a little tricky in Calgary. The weather was very warm when we got in on Saturday, but it snowed all day yesterday, and then all of a sudden it melted in the morning, and it's actually quite nice here in Medicine Hat. I think we're in the pluses, so can't complain about that, Tegan.
Well, Dante De Caria, of course, you got a little mini road trip going on in Alberta right now. The Pats built a 3-goal lead in Calgary last night. Let's start there, but they ended up losing in overtime. How did the game turn after they had such a strong start?
Yeah, okay, so first I want to say Calgary has put on some really big comebacks over the course of the season. So they're known to have these types of, late comebacks. Now, did I expect with 8 minutes left in the game that the Pats up 3-0 would surrender a 3-0 lead? No. You could just see in the third period that Calgary was really starting to come on. I really felt like through 40 minutes of play, the Pats were playing real desperate hockey, and that's the type of hockey that we need to see them play down the stretch with 7 games remaining in the season, especially going into, Wednesday's game against the Lethbridge Hurricanes, which is a must-win scenario. Maybe I can get into kind of the playoff numbers or what it's going to take for the Pats to clinch in a moment. But Tegan, just to answer your original question, the Pats were kind of getting some really good puck luck over the course of the game. I think Calgary hit a couple of posts. There were a couple of shots that ended up, being just on the line. The Pats got a really lucky goal from Ruslan Karimov on the side of the net, and it just seemed like the hockey gods were in Regina's favor. And then things kind of leveled out in the third period of play. Calgary gets a big power play goal with about 8:55 to play in the third period, and then they score, a nice goal in front of the net where Ethan Moore just kind of gets position on Effer McNutt and kind of slides it home. And then, unfortunately, the 3-3 goal just, the Pats kind of caught sleeping in their own zone, and they left Blake Vanek wide open in front of the net, and then Julian May scores just a minute and 2 seconds in overtime. So, the Pats played great through 50 minutes of action, but that's why you need to play a full 60 minutes, and that's what they'll try to do tomorrow against Medicine Hat, and in particular Wednesday against Lethbridge.
And you brought it up, the numbers, the playoff picture. We are scoreboard watching with 7 games to go, and these are some pretty important games, especially when you look at the opponents in Medicine Hat and Lethbridge. The last meeting against Medicine Hat maybe wasn't a game that the Regina Pats want to remember.
No, an 11-2 loss last Tuesday inside the Brandt Center. That was kind of a wash. They did bounce back on Friday with a 6-4 win over the Lethbridge Hurricanes and almost squeaked out a win over a very good Calgary Hitmen team yesterday. And the most important thing for the Regina Pats is that they gather at least a point. Now, going into yesterday's game against Calgary, Tegan, it was kind of a 6-point spread in order to clinch their first playoff spot in 2 years. So now it's down to 5. Their magic number is at 3.5. Now, Moose Jaw did win on Friday, or on would have been Saturday, and so did the Red Deer Rebels. So the Pats currently have a 4-point cushion over Red Deer and a 5-point lead over the Moose Jaw Warriors for 7th in the Eastern Conference standings. And with 7 games left in the season, give or take, Tegan, the Pats need to win, say, 3 games. So that's a total of 2, 4, 6 points, right? So that would solidify them a spot 7th in the Eastern Conference standings. Now, the Pats are trying to finish as high as possible. Obviously, 6 is kind of out of reach right now with Saskatoon holding that position. But the magic number is essentially right down to 3.5. So that means a combination of a Moose Jaw Warriors loss and a Regina Pats win can move them up 2. So say, for example, Regina picks up a win tomorrow against Medicine Hat, and then Moose Jaw loses their next game. That magic number would go down from 3.5 to, say, 2. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, I know you mentioned scoreboard watching. I think what the team is trying to do is not looking at what other teams are doing, because I feel like you don't want to make the playoffs because of Red Deer losing or Moose Jaw just losing out. You want to make the playoffs from winning and getting points down the stretch. 7 games left in the season. They have 3 wins potentially circled on their calendar. Hopefully they can beat Lethbridge on Wednesday. That's the big one. They're lower than the Pats in the Eastern Conference standings. Medicine Hat is way higher than Regina. They have 98 points. The Pats have 56 points. And then they've got Moose Jaw coming up next Sunday. That's a big game as well. And then they need to find a way to potentially beat Prince Albert, maybe get a point tomorrow against Medicine Hat, and maybe get 2 points against Brandon for the final 2 games of the season.
Yeah, it is far from an easy schedule to wrap up the WHL regular season here, but looking forward to even more Pats hockey at the Brandt Center. I do want to get your take, Dante, because I know we're up against the clock and we only have a few minutes left here. But I gotta ask, you're a hockey guy. That Sabres Lightning game, 8-7, 15 goals over 100 penalty minutes. I mean, if you were up in the broadcast booth, how would you even begin to describe that game?
Well, maybe just how crazy I went when Taylor Tabashnik dropped the gloves last Friday in Brandon against Filip Ruzicka. But
it was so good, Dante.
we had the game on in the press box at the Saddle Dome in Calgary, so I kind of was watching out of the corner of my eye, and I was doing out-of-town scoreboard updates throughout the broadcast because there wasn't really a ton of action around the WHL yesterday. But I didn't have a chance to actually watch the game or tune in because I was so glued to the World Baseball Classic, watching Team Canada lose a heartbreaker to Panama. Yeah, that was tough, Tegan. Honestly, I was hoping for Canada to win. They made some really unfortunate mistakes late in the game with James Paxton coming in. That relay with Otto Lopez and Casey was amazing. But that was a game that Canada should have won. They've never made it really out of the group stage. So, yeah, I was kind of hoping that this team had a chance to make it to the quarterfinal, but I guess we'll have to see how they do against Puerto Rico coming up. And then they've got a really big game coming up against Cuba as well.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one, but hey, you got to have confidence in your nation's team, right? How did I not even think to ask you about World Baseball Classic? You're a baseball coach.
I am a baseball coach, and I have a good friend of mine on Team Canada's roster at the World Baseball Classic, Philippe Aumont from Gatineau, Quebec, just outside Ottawa. I worked with Phil when I was working in Ottawa with the professional baseball team there, and it's kind of cool to see him pitch. I think it was in game one. He closed out the game against Colombia. There's lots of players throughout the World Baseball Classic that I've had the opportunity to cover in my career and had the opportunity to be around. So it's quite cool to just have those connections with people. But yeah, Canada's in tough. Puerto Rico's a good team. Cuba's a very good team as well. The Cuban roster is somewhat unknown, but you know, I've had the opportunity to actually broadcast a couple of games with the Cuban national team actually coming to Ottawa to play the Ottawa team in exhibition games a couple of years ago. So they're a very good team. They're a country that breeds and bleeds baseball. So I wish Canada would have had some more players sign up. There's a few players such as like Matt Brash and Freddie Freeman and et cetera. And obviously Nick Pivetta, one of the top pitchers for the San Diego Padres, he should have raised his hand to represent his country. So they're a little bit short-staffed. Canada has always struggled on the pitching side of things. They've just lacked depth at that side of things. They've always been good with their bats and stuff like that. So, yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see. I think they're playing tonight against Puerto Rico, so good luck.
Well, thank you very much, play-by-play voice of the Regina Pats, Dante De Caria. I hope you have a great call tomorrow night and Wednesday night for that matter, and safe travels back from Alberta after those ones.
Thanks, Tegan. Thanks so much for having me.